Vanguard!
As planet Krei spins closer to their sun, more and more sunlight hits the forests of Krei in which an ancient dragon resides. Awoken by the power of these sun rays, he starts manipulating the force to his commands. Arboros dragon Sephiroth has awoken. Arboros dragon Sephiroth can command the woods of planet Krei to fight and protect him in battle. He commands the woods like no other unit in Neo Nectar has done before. Plants literally come alive where he roams. Sephiroth makes this all possible thanks to its two powerful skills. His first passive Vanguard ability makes it that every time a plant token is created, it will be created as a super plant token. A plant token with 10k power, 10k shield, 1 critical, boost and intercept. This means you can really empower your columns but also increase your guard output. This helps you to get the maximum value out of your deck, as combined with his second ability, you basically can generate an endless supply. As his second ability allows him once per turn to sacrifice 1 unit to create 2 plant tokens, and if you have a full field, he gains an additional 10k power. This not only helps you to keep generating powerful columns and free 10k interceptors, but you can create a solid Vanguard attack that can swing easily for 33k. Arboros dragon Sephiroth thrives in value and can outpressure or outlast any opponent. However, he doesn't do this alone, as he can call on the forest for aid, and he can even take different forms to adjust to different situations. We just saw his battle form, but he can also take on a wisdom form in the likes of Arboros dragon branch. This version allows us to swing in with on hit pressure. This is great when going second, but also once we can build solid lanes. The free searches can fix our right chain, but also filter our deck and in some cases get a mini Tsukuyomi going. His other form is Arboros dragon Timber, known as the Dragon of Life. In this form he can either manipulate tokens or create them. As a Vanguard unit, if we combine him with any token generator, we can build a solid 18 or 20k column. Paired off with a grade 2 token creator, we can have a grade 2 turn with a 10k and 20k attack, which is pretty good in the adversity of defensive triggers. Arboros' trusted companion is Guild of Arboros Oliver. This is another card that can create tokens, but it can also be a massive beatstick with 2 crits. This can be great during the late game where you can pressure for a game with high powered columns with extra crits. Also, this could be a very deadly turn to right if you can manage to activate its skill, as it can put your opponent at high damage before you go into your Sephiroth turns. For one massive beatstick we go to another, as we have Fruits Assault Dragon. This support grade 3 is an amazing beater in combination with Sephiroth, and with 10k tokens and this card allows us to go for force 2 without actually losing out on pressure. Another great card that can empower Arboros' playstyle is Grain, Sprout, Maiden and Nifa. This grade 1 can make our tokens even stronger and give them resist. This way you can get even more benefit from your tokens that have the intercept ability. This card also allows us to pressure early game, as it can create an 80k column with a 5k token, which means it hits over defensive trigger. And the following turn, if you combine it with Timber, will be a 23k column, which again is high enough to beat over defensive triggers. Arboros dragon can even recruit the help of the forest's most skillful warriors, the Musketeers. Peony Musketeer Torre is a great card that can help you search for cards you need, as you can easily sacrifice tokens to make pluses or just search for cards you can actually use. Peony Musketeer Martina is also a great target that, when combined with Torre, can help you swing in with extra crits, or it can substitute as a Vanguard unit if you miss out on Sephiroth and you want a bit more filtering going on. Arboros dragon Sephiroth has basically a non-issue with resources. The main support line doesn't use any, and only Oliver uses a counterblast a turn. This means you can easily slot in other cards that uses Counterblast or Soul Blast. This is the reason why we can slot in some of the Musketeer support cards, because we can afford them. As for triggers, you mainly focus on crits, as you can build insane columns. You can also deck filter quite effectively, as well as create mini stack with the grade 1 Arboros dragon. Combine it with already natural crits of certain units, and you can have free Gauntlet Buster pressure level attacks, only without the control option. With that, we can immediately shift over to the imaginary gifts, as we can use both markers in this build. We can already reach numbers around the 30k and sometimes even higher, so going for Force 2 might be obvious, especially with the extra crits and other units with inherent crits. Means you can pressure game on free damage. But with the aggressive early game, we might already push our opponent to 4 damage, and then going for Force 1 might be better, especially with the fact we have all those other ways to gain crits on our units. Both markers are usable, so try to use them accordingly. Because Arboros Dragon uses no resources, it opens up to many different ways on how we can build the deck, and in this video we will cover 3 different builds. One that's all about filtering the deck, outlasting your opponent, and then come in with a deck filled with crit triggers. And the second build is a deck that uses the 10k tokens to outvalue your opponent, either by generating immense power or free shields turn after turn. But before all that, let's take a look at how we can build a basic deck straight out of the box. This list contains all the basic essentials. We have the Arboros Ride Chain, including the basic token support cards, but we also see 3 new faces. Maiden of Protea is a massive token generator. It allows us to turn 1 card into 3 tokens, and if we chain this off with Sephiroth, then it's effectively 4 tokens in 1 card. The other token generator is Maiden of Happy Foam. This great one is your generic token generator that can create a single token on call. And lastly, we have Primal Vein Dragon as a token support card. This card is the Neo Nectar Battle Dore card. This card is pretty good with Force 2 as it mimics the Great Nature Matilda card, but this is in some regards way better as it's more consistent and constant. The deck wants to make use and abuse of the 10k tokens, use them to swarm the field to empower cards like Sephiroth, Fruit, Sword Dragon, and Oliver. In the early game, you can combine Anifa with Happy Phone to create a solid 18k lane, or the next turn, if you can ride into Timber, you can create a 23k column. This helps with early game pressure. Also, don't forget the tokens are free shield in combination with Anifa. That is 15k guard, and that can be created turn after turn. Use Branch to achieve 3 pluses and filters, and on high damage or defensive triggers, you can just use him to ram into rears if you want those extra filters. If you go for Force 2, combine them with the high columns to really pressure game, but also combine a Force 2 marker with Primal Vein Dragon to force excessive amount of cards from your opponent's hand. Now that we have a better understanding how to use the deck, let's see how a powered up version looks like when adding in older support. Not much has changed, the only difference is the loss of Primal Vein Dragon and the Grade 1 PG, but in return we have even more token generators. Pansy Musketeer Sylvia and Fruits Basket Elf. These cards will help us generate tokens in the early game more consistently for the likes of Anifa and Branch, but they are also allows us to generate a lot more 10k tokens during the late game, which helps us to really get the most value out of these new 10k tokens. Fruits Basket Elf is also a bit unique that during your Grade 3 turn, the moment they are created, they get an additional 5k, meaning they become 15k tokens, and if we combine them with Anifa, then they become a solid 28k lane. The overall playstyle is exactly the same, the only difference is that it's a bit more consistent as you can create more tokens and also much sooner. In fact, it opens up the chance to use Oliver on turn 2 without sacrificing actual units. With the token playstyle out of the way, it is time for a more interesting approach and a very unique strategy. If we combine the Arboros engine with the new Musketeer engine, we can get a unique deck that doesn't work like either decks were designed for, as we get this list. As you can see, we have the Arboros core, but also the Musketeer core. The only card outside these cores is Fruit Basket Elf, and she is only here for the token generation, so we can have some pressure and token value on a more consistent basis, but also to have more sacrifice fodders for our Musketeer cards. The new card in this list is the old VR White Lily Musketeer, Cecilia. This card allows us to superior call units from the deck and potentially power up the field. The strategy behind this deck is to deck filter every single card out of the deck besides triggers. We can do this thanks to Arboros Dragon Branch, as he can search out all of the other Arboros cards. And then to go for the other half of our deck, we have Peony Musketeer Torre that can fetch out herself, Martina, and Cecilia. Both these searchers are putting everything on the bottom of the deck like a Tsukiyomi stack, so depending on what your stack is, you can either use it to drive check crits when you know they will happen, Or if they are really spread out, you can ride into Cecilia or Martina to shuffle the deck to get these triggers more clumped together, while at the same time thin the deck even more. This deck adopts a Tsukuyomi-like playstyle, but at the same time can still dish out insane pressure. You have units that can swing in with extra crits, and you can empower your field to high numbers if you need to, making it a very versatile build that really complements players who wants to play smart. Arboros Dragon power lies in many factors. It doesn't use resources, it can generate free power and shield, and has a free searcher that can fetch a third of the deck. It can also create solid numbers and give units extra crits, which means both Force 1 and 2 are viable options. The only issue is that Arboros is a calculated value deck, without inherent combos. You know exactly the amount of power and shield you can generate each turn. But so does your opponent. So it's your job to be one step ahead of your opponent and put them in the scenario where they can only calculate their own defeat. Arboros Dragon can take on many forms, but whatever form he might take, you can guarantee the moment you make eye contact, you won't ever leave these woods. Thanks for watching this Neo Nectar spotlight for Arboros Dragon. We're not just done yet with the mysterious fortune, as we're gonna dive right next into the budget decks for that set. But if you're interested in more deck spotlights for the other decks for Gold Paladin and Great Nature, then you can check them out right here, as we already have them live on the channel. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely patrons over at Patreon. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, then you can simply head over to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a Patreon today. Well, with that said, I'm Mr. Timely, and I see you guys in the next one!